Well, there's a lot of talk about the fact that she was married to her brother. I know nothing about it. I hear she was married to her brother. You're asking me a question about it. I don't know, but I'm sure that somebody would be looking at that.
President Trump referencing reports that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar may have married her brother back in 2009. Now, Omar denies this, but a new report claims to have enough evidence for authorities to investigate the first Somali American in Congress. Trace Gallagher is in our West Coast newsroom live with the details. Trace.
Laura, investigative reporter David Steinberg with PJ Media has been following this story for almost a year. Now, Steinberg claims that through social media and numerous interviews with the Minnesota Somali community, he has the evidence to prove that Ilhan Omar entered into a sham marriage with her brother and participated in, quoting here, fraudulent activities and willful misrepresentations related to her marital arrangements. According to his reporting, Omar came into the U.S. in 1995 as a fraudulent member of the Omar family, using their last name to apply for asylum. Steinberg says her real name is Ilan Noor Saeed Elmi, and in 2009 she married Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, her biological brother, who applied for asylum under his real name. Steinberg also says he has the evidence to identify Omar's biological sisters and father. He goes on to say Omar should be investigated for perjury, immigration fraud, tax fraud, student loan fraud, and bigamy. Scott Johnson worked with David Steinberg on the piece and earlier spoke with Tucker Carlson. Watch.
The sham marriage part, I would put at a 98% level of certainty. That's my view. The marriage to her brother part, I would put at about a 90% level of certainty.
We should note Fox News has also looked into these allegations, but we have not found concrete evidence to confirm them, though Ilhan Omar has stonewalled nearly all questions and inquiries. Therefore, getting to the truth has proven elusive for a number of news outlets. Her spokesperson told the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that she is often the target of conspiracy theories and false accusations, and that media outlets shouldn't, quote, fan the flames of hate. Though it appears the Minnesota Campaign Finance and Public Disclosure Board is also fanning the flames of hate because it has ruled that Omar violated campaign finance rules and ordered that she reimburse her former campaign committee. The board says Omar and her current husband filed joint tax returns. Problem is, at the time, she was married to another man, namely Ahmed Elmi. Laura.
Wow. Again, as Trace just laid out, Fox has not independently verified this extensive information laid out by this independent journalist, but it does raise the question, why aren't any mainstream media outlets looking into this? Well, Omar's local paper, the Star-Tribune, last penned a piece nearly a month ago. We reached out to them, and they refused to give us a clear answer as to their future coverage. But what about the Washington Post, the New York Times, AP? You think that, issues over naturalization, immigration status of a member of Congress who's become so prominent, so powerful, so fast would be of interest to the media. Just any glimmer of curiosity? Here now, the man who actually launched this investigation in the first instance, Minnesota State Rep Steve Drazkowski. Steve, what is behind the larger media blackout on this?
Well, Laura, thank you. Actually, David Steinberg and others have been working on this for about 3 years now, and they have really spoon-fed this to the media. But when you've got media like the Minneapolis Star-Tribune in Minneapolis here that has a giant fawning portrait of Ilhan Omar hanging on their lobby wall, and I'm going to say that again, I mean that literally. They have a portrait, a large portrait of Ilhan Omar hanging on their lobby wall in the Star-Tribune office.
And so we got to get a copy of that. We got to get a picture of that. That's hilarious.
I can send it to you.
Okay.
And so that is what we are dealing with here in Minnesota. And over again, the media has been stonewalling this for the last year. And so we're really frustrated and really appreciate you reaching out and covering some of this.
So what Steinberg says is that basically in 1995, Ilan entered the United States as a fraudulent member of the, quote, Omar family, but that's not her family. The Omar family is the second unrelated family which was being granted asylum by the United States. The Omars allowed Ilan, her genetic sister Sahra, and her genetic father Nur Saeed to use false names to apply for asylum as members of the Omar family. Ilan's genetic family split up at this time. Ilan's 3 other siblings, using their real names, managed to get asylum in the UK. That's just really bizarre, but I think people have to realize that entire villages from Somalia were basically brought into the United States as part of this new refugee plan to bring in, and now there are about 90,000, correct? 80, 90,000 members of Somali community in the St. Paul, Minneapolis area. But that's quite a story of, I guess, you're trying to like freeload, allegedly freeload on someone else's asylum claim and just piling onto that family tree to get into the country.
Yeah,
if that's the case, do you lose your naturalization if it's discovered that you came in under false pretenses?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, and that's why we really need an investigation here, and we've been clamoring for one. The interesting part is the family situation, Laura. It's been described as this complicated thing, but really it's simple. Ilhan Omar and her had stayed together with the same guy since they were teenagers, and they had 2 kids, and they eventually had a third, but they had 2 kids, and then decided to go to NDSU to college. Her brother from England came over and lived with the whole family during the time they were in college, and then her brother left and went back to the UK. And so the sham marriage stayed intact until 2017, when it became an inconvenience politically, and she had to disband it at that point.
I mean, wow. That's all I can say. How do the people of Minnesota think about it? I was just in Minnesota for about 8 days, and see, people just roll their eyes when you mentioned her name. It wasn't a scientific study, but I just asked a bunch of people. But what do people in her district? Is she really popular still?
You know, I don't spend a lot of time in her district, but I expect it's about an 80% Democrat district, and so I suspect that she is. I can tell you in Minnesota, outside of that district, it's probably about 80 or 90% that would like her to have a full investigation.
All right, Steve, thanks so much.